How good is your memory? Can you remember what you had for breakfast yesterday? Can you remember the directions to the store you went to last year? Can you remember your high school locker combination? How good is your memory? Well, mine's not really good. And that's because I don't live in what's called an oral culture. I live in a written culture. And in a written culture, if you want to precisely remember something, you write it down, right? Well, Jesus didn't live in that kind of culture. He lived in what's called an oral culture. And in an oral culture, you rely on precision of memory to pass on stories. Here's what Jesus did. Here's what Jesus taught. These things were all passed on orally by word of mouth. And the charge is sometimes made that memory is faulty and that there's this time gap between Jesus' life and the writing of the first gospel, Mark, 20 to 25 years probably. And so when Mark sat down to write his gospel, could he trust his memory? I mean, you're going, okay, something happened 20 years ago. What did Jesus do? And you kind of create this picture of, well, can you really trust the gospel of Mark? Was his memory good enough? Well, there's many ways to answer this question, but I want to make a point here that God gave us a brain that is capable of memorizing precisely way beyond what most of us believe it can do. I've got a friend who has memorized the entire Bible, and his translation is over 756,000 words. He's also memorized the entire Greek New Testament. That's over 138,000 words. And I know he's memorized a large portion of the Hebrew in the Old Testament, but I never asked him how much. And you look at something like that and go, well, that's kind of freakish. I mean, that's not normal. We can't expect to memorize like that. Well, what's interesting is if you go to some of the secular records, what we find out is that Greek school children in Jesus' day were often required to memorize the entire Iliad and Odyssey. That's over 200,000 words that children had to memorize. We know that a lot of rabbis memorized the entire Hebrew scriptures. That's 309,000 words. And I'm told that children studying the Quran likewise are required to memorize huge portions of the Quran. So while my friend's memory may be slightly unusual, it's not out of the ballpark for a lot of people. And one of the things that's really different in our culture from Jesus' culture is the whole role of repetition. That when we write things down, we tend to not repeat it. But in Jesus' day, stories were told and retold and retold. So when Mark sat down to write his gospel, it wasn't like he was saying, okay, 25 years ago, Jesus did something. What did he say? He would have heard it told over and over and over and over again. And you combine that with a quality memory. What it means is that when Mark sat down and wrote his gospel, we can trust what he says. We can trust his memory. For these reasons and many more. If you want to learn more about this, check out my book, Why I Trust the Bible, and you can go to billmounts.com/trust to find out more. Thanks.